Good morning, Year 7, and welcome to your first lesson of this week. Your title today is Oliver Twist Arrives at Mr. Sourberry's, and your learning objective is to read and revise the idea of connotations, which are the meanings associated with a word. Take a moment and pause here just to note down the title and LO. Okay. So, connotations. We've talked about these before, but we need to revisit this idea. The meanings associated with a word. I'd like you to make enough space like I have on the page and write the name Oliver Twist. We're going to focus on Oliver's surname as significant. And hopefully some of you will already know the story of Oliver Twist, but even if you don't, Dickens's choice of names are absolutely fantastic and really good when you're thinking about connotations, because he always chose them carefully and usually to hint at something about the character or their nature. So twist. If I were thinking of the connotations, I might write round the edge of twist 4 things that the word twist makes me think of, and I'd like to keep them general enough that anybody might think of them, but specific enough that they're definitely linked with the word twist. My first one might be a plot twist, bearing in mind this is a story, which is where something unexpected happens. I might think about a twisting road and suggest that Oliver might have a twisty road ahead, full of change. Those two actually seem quite similar. That's not surprising because they're both linked to the word twist. What else might we think of? Well, some people might think of twist and think of perhaps someone who is twisted, someone who is, by extension, strange, evil, perhaps tortured. Interesting. That could link to Oliver. If you know the story, you might think of some of the people he encounters, perhaps some of the hardships he faces. I wonder if you can think of one more thing that twist makes you think of. It could be to do with the motion of a twist, like a spiral. What might it be? Give yourself a minute. Can you think of one? Perhaps you thought of something like the twists and turns of a roller coaster. And you might say something like, emotionally, he will experience highs and lows. Now, the one thing we want to avoid is anything that's actually a denotation. Denotations are too personal and what we would call subjective to be relevant in an analysis. So I'm just going to put to be helpful. A really good example of this might be twist. Oh, do you know what that makes me think of? Oh, a strawberry twist. Yum. Well, that's really personal. Maybe Dickens had never had a strawberry twist. In fact, there's a good chance there's lots of things that have the word twist in it, like the board game Twister, or strawberry twists, or the use of the word twister to describe a hurricane, for example, or not a hurricane, a tornado, that actually Dickens would never have heard of. And that's one thing to be aware of, is that it could be actually an anachronism to think that he was using the word that way, out of time, out of keeping the time, or it could just be too personal. For example, I have a school friend called Oliver. Maybe Oliver will be kind like Oliver Twist. Too personal. That cannot possibly be the writer's intention because that's personal to your reading. These other choices, though, a plot twist, a twisty road, someone who's twisted, or an emotionally twisty time rather than a straight path, they all suggest a fairly straightforward reading of the word. Do you get the idea? So these are all connotations. And if you want to say twist connotes, that is your verb form, connotes. It's not connotates. That's not a word. It's connotes. So you could say twist connotes plot twists ahead. Twist connotes Oliver having a twisty road full of change. Or you could say twist, the name twist, carries connotations of, and that would work just as well. Should we have a go with Mr. Bumble? Now you've got the idea. I'll zoom it down. So I've got two more for you. If you've seen the film or maybe acted in it, you might know these characters, so you might be able to infer more. We've got the name Bumble and Sourberry. I'm going to give you a minute now. Pause here, and can you write their two names with some space around them, please? Okay, are you ready? Now, I'd like you to, again, take a minute to answer these questions. I'm just going to briefly explain that Bumble, if you're bumbling, it actually means that you're incompetent. And if you're incompetent, it means that you cannot do your job properly. What is Mr. Bumble's job? Mr. Bumble is the beadle. He's there to look after all the boys who've been orphaned and left at the workhouse. Is Mr. Bumble incompetent? Does he look after the boys? Interesting. I wonder if you could come up with two other things that Bumble connotes. Give yourself a minute. Pause here. What else can you think of with Bumble? Okay, so you ever think about some answers? Common ones are the bumblebee, which is known for being large, slow, and drowsy, which certainly would describe Mr. Bumble. He's a very rotund man, although he's fairly quick to try and hit children. He's certainly not very quick at his job, so that might link, the incompetent might link to the sort of drowsy nature of bumblebees because they move quite slowly. People also think about Bumble and again Bumblebee and think about stings and pain inflicted. Inflicting pain on the innocent. Those are two quite common ones, but you might have found some others. Same thing here. I'd like you to pause and have a think about sourberry. I know it's spelt S-O-W, and if it was sour, it would be S-O-U-R, but it would be pronounced sourberry. So what connotations might there be for the name sourberry? Okay, some suggested answers, now you've had a go yourself, probably include, so sour taste is often linked to a facial expression of disgust. It's a really clear emotion, disgust. Is when you go, ooh, when you eat something really sour. But actually, if you're thinking about someone who shows that look on their face all the time, they show disgust, that might suggest someone who is unfriendly, perhaps towards Oliver. Can you think of a time when the sourberries showed disgust towards the orphan Oliver? Maybe look out for that in the passage this week. Okay, and what else might sourberries suggest? Well, if they're sour, they're not sweet. It would suggest that they're unpleasant, distasteful, or bitter people. and that suggests they've got very negative relationships. As it turns out, Mrs. Sowerberry is actually quite nice. Mrs. Sowerberry very much lives up to her name. Other suggestions that often come out of sourberries are that they look sweet but turn sour. That's part of it, so sort of a deceptive appearances. Remember, this is the couple who've taken, well, you don't know that yet, but they're the couple that taken Oliver as an apprentice. That perhaps looks sweet. And I'm trying to think of the fourth one. Yeah, I'm not sure I can think of a fourth. I wonder if you can. You should have to email me. Email Mrs. Beater if you can think of a fourth connotation for sourberry. I bet you come up with some great ideas. Okay, I'm going to stop the video here. Watch the next one for the reading of the text.